The Schooner is the new ship for Skull and Bones Year 2 Season 1. It's one of the best looking ships in game, and if you use this build that I'm about to show you, then you'll have a great time in any PvE and PVP activities. Year 2 has introduced a new difficulty called World Tier 2, which has upped the difficulty by a lot, but it also drastically increased the rewards you receive while playing in this difficulty level. World Tier 2 can feel overwhelming, but if you use this Schooner build, then you'll have a much easier and more enjoyable time. But enough of that, let's jump straight into the build. So obviously we're using the new Schooner ship, and it really needs to be upgraded the full 7 times to unlock its 2 great perks. The first being Fury, which gives us massive damage boosts to structures and weak points. This also adds 25% damage boost to broadside weapons, and this makes for great plundering. Also, once we add particular furniture pieces to further increase damage and weak point damage, the Schooner also becomes a beast in PvP events. The second perk that we need for upgrading the Schooner is Volatile. This gives broadside explosive weapons a 20% damage boost and reduces the reload times that they take for 10%. This is great news because with the new ascending weapons feature, we can make almost any weapon be classified as explosive and therefore get access to these perks. Now let's jump straight into the furniture pieces, and then I'll cover the weapons, ascension perks that you want on them next. For the major piece, I'm using Worm's Breath Churner. This works great on this Schooner build because it increases explosive weapon damage by another 5% and their secondary damage by 25%. Plus, once we build the shell shock status on our enemy, then their reload times will be increased by 25%, meaning we'll take much less damage. Then next is the starboard and port powder kegs. This is because the Schooner gets most of its power from the built-in broadside weapon perks. So these furniture pieces add another 10% damage to each side. Up next is the Ramrod Workshop, which again drastically benefits the broadside weapons. It decreases broadside weapon reload times by a massive 15% and increases secondary damage to broadside weapons by 10%. And now for the Plaguebringer's Ward. It might seem a little weird to have this fit on an explosive perk ship like the Schooner, but due to ascending weapons, we can have toxic and explosive classifications on the same weapons. This means we reduce our reload times by a massive 15% and increase damage by 8%. This means our Pick 3s will be doing some extra nasty damage to our enemies. The last furniture piece is La Potent Schematics. This is only for its 10% increase to weak point damage, and I'll show you why that's going to be really important for this build. Alright, now for the weapons and their ascension perks. As the Schooner has broadside focus perks, the broadside weapon choice is most important, and this is where the La Pick 3s really shine. Even before ascending them, they have built-in toxic damage, which allows us to get the benefits from the Plaguebringer's Ward furniture. Plus, it has an increase of 75% extra damage to weak points, and this is where it starts to get real crazy. In the first modification slot, I use combust, and this is simply to technically categorize the weapon as explosive as well as toxic. Now it gets all of the Schooner's explosive weapon damage and reload boosts, as well as the toxic boosts. In the next modification slot, lethal works great. It increases weak point damage by a massive 33%. And in the last modification slot, deadly strike ties it all together. This increases weak point damage by another 32%. And gives you a chance to trigger a weak point hit on an enemy even if you don't actually hit the weak point. This is huge and allows us to do a bonus 150% increased damage to any weak points. And this can trigger even if you don't hit the actual weak spot, which makes it really crazy powerful for PvP. This combination has allowed me to take half of an enemy's health with just one shot, and this is why it's so powerful in PvP and the PvE. I have the Pick 3s on both sides with the same ascension perks. And now for the auxiliary position. My weapon choice varies depending if it's a PvP or PvE event that you want to do. For PvE, I use the Little Grace 3 with these ascension perks. Service, for increase to repair amount by 12.4%. Sailor's Respite. This gives you a 7% chance to heal for a massive 334%, which is huge when you see it trigger. Lastly is Preemptive Defense, and this grants us and allies 50 extra armor per hit, and it can stack 5 times. So that can be easily a bonus of 250 armor to mitigate damage. Plus we get an extra 5% repair from this. This is great for PvE, especially in World Tier 2, as it makes you much tankier and heal quickly whilst you wait for your repair kits to get off cooldown. But if you're doing PvP events, I recommend using the Mine Spring Loader 3 with these Ascension perks. Dire Flooding. This allows the hits to ignore 12.1% of the enemy's flooding resistance, and this is really going to be evident soon in PvP. Next is Hardy Boys, and this gives your boys an extra 51% health. This is great because it keeps them out longer as the enemy can't destroy them as easily. And lastly is Overflow. This increases flooding damage by 8.7%, and now all of your flooding damage is applied as severe damage. This is a really lethal PvP combo because we can shoot out 2 boys in the enemy's path, which most PvP players don't realise because they're too busy focusing on you and just firing as much as possible at you. And these boys will do massive flooding and severe damage that slows your enemy down and allows you to smash them with your juiced up Lepic 3s. For the front and rear, you can add 2 more Lepic 3s if you want, but I've gone with the Lang Ka Tao. I probably butchered that pronunciation. And its Ascension perks are Dire Explosive. This allows hits to ignore 9.5% of the enemy's explosive resistance. Soul Mending, and this allows 6.5% of damage dealt to be repaired on my ship. And this is actually very helpful too out in PvE world. And lastly, Amplified Explosive, for an increase of 29.3% for explosive damage. And this is great for hitting weak points on buildings, as you get a massive return of free healing from that damage you do. For the armor, I highly recommend using the Silver Sentinel. This is amazing if you practice with it, because timing is very important. If you brace 2 seconds or less before getting hit, you will remove 3000 damage taken, and this is a very useful ability. The only drawback is that bracing uses twice as much crew stamina, so make sure to have a good food equipped that restores higher stamina than others. The best is something like Tylosaur steaks or other meats you have to cook. And the Blast Proof perk reduces damage taken from explosive weapons by 15%. This is as most weapons being used this season are explosives. Also remember better rolls than I got for your Ascension perks, as your statistics could be much higher. I've tested and fully upgraded a lot of other weapon combinations, and this is definitely working the best. But let me know if you enjoy another build on the Schooner more than this one. And that's all the important stuff you needed to know. Thanks for watching, and I hope it helps you out in World Tier 2. Also, with the new PvP mode to be releasing next week, this will be a perfect ship to have ready for it. Are you all as excited for that new game mode as me, or is PvE more your thing? I'll see you next time in the Indian Ocean. Bye!